Good morning, U.S. history class. Today is April 1st, 2020. Welcome to April. Hope you're all doing well. Hope everyone's staying healthy, following all the social distancing rules and hand washing and all those things that are expected us to keep everyone safe and healthy. Um, Today, I just want to talk a little bit about yesterday's assignment that some of you have completed and some of you have yet to do. Respond to some of your questions that you have posted, and talk about today's assignment. So, first of all, yesterday's assignment is something that we've done in class before. If you remember, we would put those pictures on chart paper and you go around with a partner and write down your questions, observations, and predictions. Moved it on to an online format with Google Docs. It looks like many of you are able to figure out how to make those comments as you go through. Thank you for doing that. For those of you who have yet to do it, you still have time, so take care of that today. It shouldn't take too long. And again, we do that to give a preview of the major events or pieces that we are going to be studying the next couple weeks as we try to make sense of the questions. How do governments and businesses work together to promote the well-being of the people? So each of those pictures that you saw there somehow relate to a way that we're going to try to answer that question through different historical periods. We've had to cut out a number of different things, but we'll try to find some pieces that that hold that narrative, that hold that story together the best we can in this new format. Also, one of the questions yesterday was what questions do you have about COVID-19? I want to remind you that the journals that we are doing here, those are to help us process what is going on. We are living in a very historical moment. This is changing everyone's lives. We recognize many of that. And this moment will probably be some sort of marking point in history for how it was handled successfully or not, and what comes of it. And there'll be lots of different consequences or ramifications of this moment that we're living in. So it's important right now, as students, as teachers, as people, to sort of process this and try to understand what is happening in this moment. Everything that we're coming up with now will sort of end up in the historical record of how we processed it and thought about it. So also, writing about it, processing, asking questions helps us create a better understanding for it. In times of uncertainty, the more clear understanding you have of what is happening, the better you're going to feel about it. It helps reduce some of that stress and anxiety. Even if some of the information is a little bit scary, which it is with all the number of people who are sick and who have died, it is. But we want to keep track of the information and the facts, and that helps us process a little bit better, and helps us be able to deal with it a little bit better. So, some questions yesterday that came in I wanted to respond to real quick. One question is, why did the president close the borders earlier to prevent the virus? It's hard to say if closing the borders any earlier would have done much good. Everything happened so quickly. I think if we look back, maybe you say, yeah, we could have just closed everything down, but you still have logistical things of people coming and going, and it's really hard to close down all the borders in all the country right away. And plus, once the virus is already in the country, which it was pretty earlier, even before we talked about closing the borders, even with a small amount, it's hard to say what would happen with that small amount. Now it looks obvious what was going to happen, but at that time, it maybe it wasn't clear. Could have been taken a little bit more seriously. Yes, we could have possibly done so, and maybe the better approach would have been better prepared for what was happening in other countries. So you could have maybe closed down the borders a little bit earlier. Maybe having more testing right away and the testing supplies would have helped give us a better picture of what was really happening. Early on, I think we and I talk about different state and federal governments were making decisions without knowing a lot of the facts because the testing really wasn't all that great. So it was really hard to know what to do or what not to do. Will we be able to get products from China anymore, even if we have the virus under control? Yes, we will. It depends on how quickly some of those supply chains are able to restart. When I say supply chain, I mean products move all around the world. Parts are made here, parts are made other places, then they kind of come together as a finished product and are shipped all over the world. Those supply chains are all disrupted right now because of this. Some of those things are still working, but what normal looks like again with that will take some time, and that might even change from it. So yes, trade will resume. There is still trade going on. It's just everything is very slow right now because of the economic activity in many places around the world has essentially just stopped. Why do some people take it as not important? I think this was confusing early for people. I think people were getting mixed messages on saying like, oh, it's not that bad. It's not any worse than the flu. And so there is some mixed messages and some misinformation around what was really happening. And so that wasn't clear for people. And so anytime you have a mixed message, people really don't know what to think. And then they're not going to take it as serious. Now I think we've established a bit more of a clear message throughout the country on the importance of social distancing and what it needs to happen to slow this down. I think on Sunday, when the president and the health advisors talked about the possibility of 100,000 to 200,000 people dying from this, definitively sort of set like, this tells us now this is a problem, and the scale and the scope of the problem. Up until that point, I'm not sure how serious people were taking it. I've been following it for a while since it's been in China, just sort of aware of what's happening, and then spreading to Italy. And I know Eduardo's family was in Italy, and so they were impacted by lockdowns a lot earlier than us. And so I was just kind of keeping an eye on it. But I think the message, once it sort of came to the United States, and we should have known that it was going to get here, of how it spread throughout the world and how high of a population the United States have and our dense cities, that one clear message early on would have been helpful for people to take it more seriously. When will things be okay again? I don't know. Right now, the health advisors and the experts are running all sorts of models. So they take all the information they have, they put it into a model, which is sort of like a prediction on what could happen. And there's different parameters in the model to say, well, this many people could get sick, or this many people could get sick, and this many people could die, and this many people could die, based on the scenario that we know. And that gets continually updated as more testing takes place, and then they know where the virus actually is. So the question on when things will be okay again, or whether this is the peak, predictions say the peak is coming over the next kind of 2 weeks, but it's really going to vary city by city. So it's hard to see there's one peak for the entire country. I think you'll see different peaks in different cities. So cities are trying to do their best, and states are trying to do their best to try to contain it and limit it so that it doesn't grow out of control. And I think Minnesota, if you look at some of the statistics, Minnesota is doing pretty well. So we got to keep up our good work of doing this. And I think there was, from Minnesota, a pretty strong message, pretty clear message from the governor early on about how serious this was. And I think the people in Minnesota maybe heeded that a little bit better than maybe some other places. Also, it was cold, and so we weren't necessarily out and about as much when things first started. So when will things be okay again? We're going to have to get used to sort of this new normal a little bit and do the best that we can with it. So we can try to make things okay with what we can control. I know that that's hard to sort of take and cause a lot of stress for people. And on the other side of it, we don't know how long this will last or what will happen after we see the peak and things start to decline. Because what you don't want to happen is hit the peak of this virus, see things start to go down, and think everything's okay, and have it come roaring back again. And so, my impression is that it's going to take longer than we kind of think. Everything has kind of pushed it longer and longer and longer, and so the way things have been moving, that's just sort of, I think it'll be a little bit of time. So hopefully by the summer we can get something that looks like normal. But again, normal our old normal might not exist anymore, and it gives us an opportunity to reset and recreate what we want to see as our new normal right now, whether that's how we spend time with family, the things that we do, and how we spend our time, and in what school looks like. So it's hard to say what will happen. One more question here: has the virus mutated? because of how it's affecting different people. There are lots and lots of studies going on right now, and the same thing for looking for a vaccine. Those studies and looking for a vaccine take a lot of time because they want to do it right. If you do the studies incorrectly and have false information and make decisions based off of that, that could make things worse. If you get a vaccine that you think is a vaccine, but it's incorrect or something's not right with it, then that can make things worse too if you think you have people vaccinated who actually aren't. So we're still learning. It's a new disease, and it takes time to learn what that is and what it's going to be. And so timelines on vaccines usually take quite a bit of time. They're going to hurry as much as they can. We want to be careful with how much they hurry, because if there's too much hurry, you can mix it up. And if you don't get it right, it'll make things worse. So they have to be careful and cautious and take their time with that. So thanks for your questions. Today's assignment, this provides a little bit of background. Again, that article was from last week, and a lot has changed already from then. So you're kind of reading a piece of history from last week from our lens of today with the current situation with COVID-19. You will have the assignment posted on Google Classroom. Each person will have an assignment. Today, your goal is to read that article. There's also 2 audio files if you want to listen to it. And there's a version of the text that is at a lower Lexile. If the original one's a little bit too challenging for you, use the other one for your reading. So find me on Google Meet, email me if you have any questions, or post on Google Classroom, and we'll be hearing from you soon. All right, stay well. Bye.